Well, greetings, fellow earthlings. We are here representing the Almighty, who is extraterrestrial. We have I always joke with my clerks at the stores, and I'll tell them, they'll say, "I need your license, please." And I said, "Did you need my extraterrestrial license or my terrestrial license?" and they say, "Extraterrestrial? Yeah, don't you know we have extraterrestrial licenses?" Well, no. I've got one. You want to see it? Yeah. So I pull out my ordination certificate and show it to them, and I go, "Oh my God, it's real." Yeah, it's real. Well, we have had cold weather come to Texas. It's supposed to get down in the 20s tonight, and that means that's danger zone for pipes. And it's also danger zone for any pets you might have outside, so keep them from freezing, okay? So God gave us the seasons, and we appreciate the seasons. And the winter is for resting and sleeping. So why am I standing vertically instead of horizontal here? I have an exciting Torah parsha for you tonight, but I've taught it so many times, it's like I'm over familiar with it. And then when you're over familiar with a subject, you tend to skip parts that you think you've already taught, and so you think you're not sure where your students are coming from, and so you end up missing a lot. But I think we can do a good job with it. Tonight's Torah parsha is Genesis chapter 18, beginning in verse 1, and after a word of prayer, we will get right into the scriptures. Avinu Shabbat Shamayim, our Father who is in the heavens, we thank you and praise your holy name for opportunities to join together to study your word, especially things that are so deep and spiritual as Genesis. We love the book of Genesis, Lord, and we love how it reveals the beginning looks of what you are and what you're like. We praise you for this opportunity. Everybody say, "Lord, I'm hungry.
Lord, I'm hungry.
I ask you to feed me.
I ask you to feed me.
And I'm thirsty, Lord.
And I'm thirsty, Lord.
I ask for a big old glass of living water from heaven.
I ask for a big old glass of living water from heaven.
And I thank you for it.
And I thank you for it.
Give me enough that I'll be able to give some to others too.
Give me enough so I'll give some to others too.
All week long.
All week long.
In the name of Messiah Yeshua, I pray.
In the name of Messiah Yeshua, I pray.
Amen.
Amen.
You may be seated. And if you get sleepy, you can stand again. Believe me, you don't want to miss this. This is exciting stuff. Well, at least I have one jacket on to keep me warm. Genesis chapter 18, beginning in verse 1. Vayera elav Yahweh belonei mamre vahu yoshev patach ha'ohel kahum hayom. Now, it says Yahweh appeared to Abraham in the heat of the day while he was sitting in the tent, the door of the tent in the heat of the day, and Yahweh appeared and made himself made known unto Abraham. Verse 2, he lifted up his eyes. And we've talked about that phrase over and over, so you should already be familiar with it from our other Tuesday night and Shabbat classes and the Spirit Realm Seminar. If you've been through it, we've covered this this whole section right here in micro detail. Vayisa einav, and he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Shilosha Anashim, 3 men. The translation here says, by him. Well, anyway, by him. That's not correct translation. This is man's understanding being thrown into it. Okay? It literally means on him. On him. That's the literal translation of it. So 3 men stood on him when he saw them. Now, the implication is that they are close to him enough to be able to touch him. Okay? And that they are on him. It's like if you're on, let's see, what's a good example? Well, a military guy, if he's standing near his enemy, he's on him. Okay? And so it's like that enemy can't move without him knowing it. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them. So if they're on him, why did he have to run to meet them? Okay? Questions that need answering. Okay. Vayarutz is the root here, and it literally means he ran. To run for whatever reason, especially to rush. So here he is, and he stood saw these 3 men standing there at him, where he is, on him, and he ran to meet them. It shows an awareness of people who are, he knows where they are, they're close by, and he knows exactly where to run to go greet them. It says some other very interesting things. This entire verse here is just full of metaphors and understandings that take you so deep into God's Word. It says, he stood when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the door. And the word there is mipatach. Patach means literally the opening. It doesn't mean a door like you'd see a door handle with a knob on it and a mezuzah on the frame and all that. This isn't one of those. This is the patach. It's an opening in his tent where he goes in and out. But this whole concept yields itself to a deeper metaphor, which is the tent is a place where he's comfortable. And he's in the door in the heat of the day to shade himself from the sun, I guess you could say. That would be the natural aspect of the metaphor. But he was in the tent door, and he bowed himself toward the ground. Artsah means the ground, and the feminine ending on artsah, the ah sound at the end of it, that is indicating the direction of his travel. So he's lowering himself to the ground. And then he said, Adonai, and this is in the original sense of the word Adonai, which means master, if I have found favor in your sight, please do not pass away from your servant. So he's actually talking to his Lord, which is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is Abraham. Well, Isaac and Jacob hadn't come along yet. But he's talking here directly to God, and he says, don't pass away from your servant. He says, let me fetch you a little water. Now I'm going to switch on over to the English. It says, please let a little water be brought and wash your feet and rest yourselves under a tree. The place that he's at is called the Mamre, and that means oak trees. It's like there are a lot of oak trees here in this area. And he says, please rest yourself under the tree, and I'll bring a morsel of bread that you may refresh your hearts, and after that you may pass by inasmuch as you have come unto your servant. They said, do as you have said. Let's look at this in detail here in the interlinear for one moment. It said 3 men, anashim here is the word, and it typically means natural flesh and blood people. So in verse 2 it says, he lifted up his eyes, looking upwards into heaven, and he looked, and behold, Shilosha Anashim, 3 men, Nitzavim, they stood on him or by him. When he saw them, he ran to meet them from the door of the tent. Now, one of these 3 men was apparently Yahweh manifesting in the natural flesh. I've had Jews argue with me over this. No, Yahweh can't manifest in the natural flesh. Well, if he can't, then who can?
Right.
The angels? Can they manifest in human flesh? Well, yeah. Well, then, is God less powerful than they are? Or is he more powerful?
More powerful.
So if they can, he can. He can do anything he wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
But they just are, their minds block on this subject because they don't want to believe that Yeshua was God manifesting in human flesh.
Yeah. Yep. That's right.
And that would give support for that concept. And so they try to avoid it. And then, so one of these 3 men is apparently Yahweh. Now let me get back over to the New King James Version translation, because everywhere it says Lord in here, you know that that's the one who is the Lord of all. And so Abraham hurried to the tent to Sarah and said, quickly make ready 3 measures of fine meal kneaded and make cakes. This is fine cake flour. And Abraham ran to the herd and took a tender and good calf and gave it to a young man, which we believe was Ishmael, because he would have been about the right age to be trained in how to do the shechat, the slaughter for a offering.
Offering, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Abraham hurried to the tent. We're saying he ran to the herd, took a tender and good calf, and gave it to the man, and he hastened to prepare it. So he took butter and milk and the calf which he had prepared and set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree as they ate. Now this is very unusual, because in other references where the Lord shows up, for example, when he came before Gideon, Gideon didn't stand there and watch them as they ate. I have to go reread that. It could be that he did stand by there. I don't know. But anyway, but this is unusual to see anyone having a meal with Yahweh right there in front of them. So he stood by them as they ate there. He stood by them under the tree as they ate. And they said to him, "Where is Sarah your wife?" He said, "Here in the tent." And he said, "I will certainly return to you according to the time of life," in other words, 9 months. "And behold, Sarah your wife will have a son." Sarah was listening in the tent of the door, which was behind him. He was in front of the door with his back to the door. Now he's outside the tent, which is a picture of being out in the rakia, the world that connects with the rest of the world. So Abraham and Sarah were old, well advanced in years, and Sarah had passed the age of childbearing. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself. It was a silent laugh, saying, "After I've grown old, I shall have pleasure in my Lord being old also." Anyway, this can be a little embarrassing if you're not used to this kind of communications, especially from the Lord. And the Lord said to him, this is the word here is all capital letters, the Lord said. That's the secret code to show that this is the sacred name of God that's here in the text. Yud He Vav He. And Yud He Vav He said unto Avram, "Why does Sarah laugh? Saying, shall I surely bear a child since I am old? Is anything too hard for Yahweh?" There's that the all capitals word again. "At the appointed time I will return to you according to the time of life, and Sarah will have a child." But Sarah denied it. "Oh no, I didn't laugh." For she was afraid, and he said, "No, but you did laugh." Then the men arose from there and looked toward Sodom. Abraham went with them and sent them on their way. And Yahweh said, "Shall I hide from Abraham the things that I'm doing? Since Abraham will surely become a great and mighty nation. All the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I have known him, in order that he may command his children and his household after him, that they keep the way of Yahweh, to do righteousness and justice, and that Yahweh may bring to Abraham what he has spoken to him." And Yahweh said, "Because the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grave, I will go down now and see whether they have done according to the outcry against it that has come to me, and if not, I will know." What? He doesn't know? Yahweh doesn't know? Well, he actually did know the outcry had come to him.
Plus, I think Lot was praying so.
Yeah. The next question was going to be, well, who'd be communicating with him about this? And, of course, Lot was there, and he was a righteous man, too, and he wanted to see his city changed for righteousness. Just like you and I want the Democrats to straighten up and fly right.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Boy. So Yahweh is down here to check it out and see if it's as bad as the reports have been. Then the men turned away from there and went toward Sodom. But Abraham still stood before Yahweh. And Abraham came near and said, "Would you also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Would you also destroy the place and not spare it for the 50 righteous who were in it?" Suppose, far be it from you to do such a thing as this, and slay the righteous with the wicked, so that the righteous should be as the wicked. Far from be it from you. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? So Yahweh said, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare all the place for their sakes. Then Abraham answered and said, indeed now, who am I but dust and ashes, have taken it upon myself to speak to Yahweh? Suppose there are 5 less than 50 righteous. Would you destroy it for all of the city for the lack of the 5? So he said, if I find there 45, I will not destroy it. He spoke to him again and said, suppose there should be 40 found there. And he said, I will not do it for the sake of the 40. Then he said, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Suppose 30 should be found there. So he said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. So he said, he said, indeed now I've taken it on myself to speak to the Lord. Suppose 20 should be found there. He said, I will not destroy it for the sake of 20. Then he said, let not the Lord be angry. I will speak but once more. Suppose 10 should be found there. He said, I will not destroy it for the sake of 10. So the Yahweh went his way as soon as he had finished speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. That's at the tent there. Now the 2 angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. And when Lot saw them, he arose to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face to the ground. And he said, hear now, my lords, please turn in to your servant's house, and spend the night and wash your feet. Then you may rise early and go on your way. And they said, no, but we will spend the night in the open space. Why? Because of the evil reports that are coming. And they want to see how bad it has really gotten to be. He insisted strongly, so they turned into him and entered his house. And then he made them a feast, baked unleavened bread, and they ate. And now before they laid down, the men in the city of Sodom, both old and young, all the people from every quarter, surrounded I lost where I'm at.
4.
Oh, verse 4. There we are.
No, it's fine.
They called to Lot and said, where are the men who came into you tonight? Bring them out so that we may know them carnally. The word there is yada. Yada means to have a sexual intercourse with them. So Lot went out to them through the doorway, shut the door behind him, and said, please, my brethren, don't do so wickedly. See, now I have 2 daughters who have not known a man. Please let me bring them out to you, that you may know them and do with them as you wish. Only do nothing to these men, since this is the reason they have come under the shadow of my roof. And they said, stand back. And then they said, this one came in to stay here. He keeps acting as a judge, and now we will deal worse with you than with them. And so they're saying here, there's the Lot guy, he thinks he's the judge of us. Well, how does one get to be a judge? They get put in place by the people. And where is he at? He sits out in the courtyard. That's where they were when the angels first came up. Mm-hmm. And so they pressed hard against the man Lot and came near to break down the door. But the men reached out their hands and pulled Lot into the house with them and shut the door. And they struck the men who were at the doorway of the house with blindness. both small and great, so that they became weary of trying to find a door. Then the men said to Lot, have ye anyone else here, son-in-law, sons, daughters, whomever you have in the city? Take them out of this place, for we will destroy this place, because the outcry against them has grown great before the face of Yahweh, and Yahweh has sent us to destroy it. So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-laws, who had married his daughters, and said, get up and get out of this place, for Yahweh will destroy this city. But to his sons-in-law he seemed to be joking. When the morning dawned, the angels urged Lot to hurry, and saying, arise, take your wife, your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be consumed in the punishment of the city. And while he lingered, the men took hold of his hand and his wife's hand and the hands of his 2 daughters, and the Lord being merciful to him, and they brought him out and set him outside the city. So it came to pass, when they had brought them outside, that he said, escape for your lives, don't look behind you. Don't stay anywhere in the plain. Escape in the mountains, lest you be destroyed. You got any comments you'd like to make while we're going along this way?
May God be so merciful not to spare the same fate upon this nation.
We're headed there fast.
I pray against it.
Amen.
Well, I don't think he has yet, because there are at least 10.
Yeah, well, it
Not
looked like he
more.
would have had 10, because he had his daughters and then their husbands.
No, I mean here there are righteous people here.
Well,
not
we
here.
hope so.
Well, here in America, I mean, there are some people who are fighting for good.
But we don't know what the size of the country was that they were talking about there, because the Sodom and Gomorrah were contained within Israel. So, that countryside, the city and its countryside is what they were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. It's not looking very good for America right now.
What happened to all of Lot's slaves and servants and stuff like that?
Well, I don't know. I guess they joined with the wicked people.
Sounds like it.
So they told them, escape for your life. Do not look behind you, nor stay anywhere in the plain. Escape to the mountains, lest you be destroyed. Verse 18, then Lot said to them, please, no, my lords, indeed now your servant has found favor in your sight, and you have increased your mercy, which you have shown by me by saving my life. But I cannot escape to the mountains, lest some evil overtake me and I die. See now, this city is near enough to flee to. It's a little one. Please let me escape there. Is it not a little one, and my soul shall live? And he said to him, see, I have found favor concerning you in this thing, in that I will not overthrow this city for which you have spoken. Hurry, escape there, for I cannot do anything until you arrive there. Therefore the name of the city was called Zoar. And the sun had risen upon the earth and entered the Zoar. And then Yahweh rained brimstone and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah from Yahweh out of the heavens. So he overthrew those cities in the plain, all of the inhabitants of the cities, and what grew on the ground. But his wife looked back behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. Ouch. Abraham went early in the morning to the place where he had stood before Yahweh. And Amara towards all the land of the plain, and he saw, behold, the smoke of the land which went up like smoke of a furnace. And it came to pass, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, God remembered Abram and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, and then he overthrew the cities in which Lot had dwelt. Then Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountains, and his 2 daughters were with him. He was afraid to dwell in Zoar, and he and his 2 daughters dwelt in a cave. Now the firstborn said to the younger, Our father is old, and there is no one on earth to come in to us as the custom of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve the lineage of our father. So they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he did not know when she lay down or when she rose. And it happened on the next day, the firstborn said to the younger, Indeed, I lay with my father last night. Let us make him drunk tonight also. You go in and lie with him, and that we may preserve the lineage of our father. Then they made their father drink wine that night also. And the younger arose and lay with him, and he did not know when she lay down and when she arose. Thus both daughters of Lot were with child by their father. The firstborn bore a son, called his name Moab. He is the father of the Moabites to this day. And the younger she also bore a son, and called his name Ben-Ami. He is the father of the people of Ammon to this day. So, these girls saved their father's lineage, and they also became a part of the lineage and the heritage of Messiah through King David's seed. Mm-hmm.
The Ruth, she was a Moabite. Yeah.
Yeah.
She was a Moabite. Mm-hmm. Moabitess, yeah.
Right. So, what?
But there was a time, though, when the Moabites were to be destroyed. Wasn't there?
I don't remember.
I'm trying to remember when and where.
God came to Abimelech. Let's see, in verse 20, chapter 20, verse 1. Abraham journeyed from there to the south and dwelt between Kadesh and Shur, and stayed in Gerar. Now Abraham said to Sarai, his wife, She is my sister. And Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent to and took Sarai. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, Indeed, you are a dead man because of this woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife. And Abimelech had not come near her, and said, Lord, will you slay a righteous nation also? Did he not say to me, She is my sister? And she, even she herself said, He is my brother. In the integrity of my heart and innocence of my hands I have done this. And God said to him in a dream, Yes, I know that you did this in the integrity of your heart, for I also withheld you from sinning against me. Therefore I did not let you touch her. Now therefore restore the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you shall live. But if you do not restore her, know that you shall surely die, and you and all who are yours. So Abimelech rose early in the morning, called on all his servants, and told all these things in their hearing. And the men were very much afraid. And Abimelech called Abraham and said to him, What have you done to us now? How have I offended you that you have brought on me and on my kingdom a great sin? You have done deeds to me that ought not to be done. Abimelech said to Abraham, What did you have in view that you have done this thing? Abraham said, Because I thought, surely the fear of God is not in this place, and they will kill me on account of my wife. But indeed, she truly is my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother. She became my wife. It came to pass when God caused me to wander from my father's house that I said to her, This is your kindness that you should do for me. In every place wherever we go, say of me, He is my brother. And Abimelech took sheep and oxen and male and female servants, and gave them to Abraham. And he restored Sarah, his wife, to him. And Abimelech said, "See, my land is before you. Dwell where it pleases you." Then Sarah said, "Behold, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Indeed, this vindicates you before all who are with you and before everybody." Thus she was rebuked. So Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech and his wife and the female servants, and they bore children. For Yahweh had closed up the wombs of all the house of the Abimelech because of Sarah and Abraham's wife. Then, in chapter 21, we see how Isaac was conceived. What does Isaac mean?
Laughter.
Laughter. That's right. First thing his mom did when she heard she was going to be
well,
pregnant,
so did Abraham.
she laughed within herself, you know.
Yep.
Oy,
Well,
gewalt.
so did Abraham.
Mm-hmm. You want to read a while?
Sure.
It should come up on the screen in front of you. Bring up the Bible. I said Bible, not Babel.
And the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore to him, Isaac. Laughter. Then Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 years old.
8 days old.
8 days.
That's what I said, 8 days old.
You said years.
Yeah.
Apologies. 8 days old.
Okay.
As
Apologize.
Yeah, Rabbi, that is internally not what it says. As God had commanded him. Now Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. And Sarah said, God has made me laugh, and all who hear will laugh with me. She also said, Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? For I have borne him a son in his old age. Now Hagar and Ishmael. For the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on the same day that Isaac was weaned. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, scoffing. Therefore she said to Abraham, Cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, namely with Isaac. And the matter was very displeasing in Abraham's sight because of his son. But God said to Abraham, Do not let it be displeasing in your sight because of the lad or because of your bondwoman. Whatever Sarah has said to you, listen to her voice. For in Isaac your seed shall be called. Yet I will also make a nation of the son of the bondwoman, because he is your seed. So Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water, and putting it on her shoulder, he gave it and the boy to Hagar, and sent her away. Then she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. And the water in the skin was used up, and she placed the boy under one of the shrubs. Then she went and sat down across from him at a distance of about a bow shot, for she said to herself, Let me not see the death of the boy. So she sat opposite of him, and lifted her voice and wept. And God heard the voice of the lad. Then the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven, and said to her, What ails you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise, lift up the lad, and hold him with your hand, for I will make him a great nation. Then God opened up her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the skin with water, and gave the lad a drink. So God was with the lad, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness, and became an archer. He dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. And it came to pass that at that time that
Abimelech.
and Pichol,
Mm-hmm.
the commander of his army, spoke to Abraham, saying, God is with you in all that you do. Now therefore swear to me by God that you will not deal falsely with me, with my offspring, or with my posterity, but that according to the kindness that I have done to you, you will do to me and to the land in which you have dwelt. And Abraham said, I will swear. Then Abraham rebuked Abimelech because of a well of water which Abimelech's servants had seized. And Abimelech said, I do not know who has done this thing. You did not tell me, nor had I heard of it until today. So Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech. And the two of them made a covenant. And Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. Then Abimelech asked Abraham, What is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs which you have set by themselves? And he said, You will take these 7 ewe lambs from my hand, that they may be my witness that I have dug this well. Therefore he called that place Beersheba, because the two of them swore an oath there. Thus they made a covenant at Beersheba. So Abimelech rose with Pichol, the commander of his army, and they returned to the land of the Philistines. Then Abraham planted a tamarisk tree at Beersheba, and there called on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham stayed in the land of the Philistines many days. Now it came to pass after these things that God tested Abraham, and said to him, Abraham! And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Take now your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. So Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son. And he split the wood for the burnt offering, and rose and went to the place of which God had told him. Then on the 3rd day Abraham lifted his eyes, and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said to his young men, Stay here with the donkey, the lad, and I will go yonder and worship, and he will come back to you. So Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering, and laid it on Isaac his son. And he took the fire in his hand and the knife, and the 2 of them went together. But Isaac spoke to Abraham his father, and said, My father! And he said, Here I am, my son. Then he said, Look, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering. So the 2 of them went together. Then they came to the place of which God had told him. And Abraham built an altar there, and placed the wood in order. And he bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said,
Top line.
Abraham, Abraham. So he said, Here I am. And he said, Do not lay your hand on the lad, nor do anything to him. For now I know that you fear God, and since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. Then Abraham lifted his eyes and looked, and there behind him was a ram caught in the thicket by its horns. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up for a burnt offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the name of the place, The Lord will provide. As it said to this day, In the mount of the Lord it shall be provided. Then the angel of the Lord called to Abraham a second time out of the heavens, and said, By myself I have sworn, says the Lord, because you have done this thing, and have not withheld your son, your only son. Blessing I will bless you, and multiplying I will multiply your descendants, as the stars of the heaven, and as the sand which is on the seashore. And your descendants shall possess the gate of their enemies. In your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. So Abraham returned to his young men, and they rose and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham dwelt at Beersheba. Now it came to pass after these things that it was told to Abraham, saying, Indeed, Milcah also has borne children to your brother Nahor, who is his firstborn. Buz, his brother, Chemiel, the father of Abram, Chesed, Hazal, Pildas, Jidlap, and Bethuel. And Bethuel begot Rebekah. These 8 Milcah bore to Nahor, Abraham's brother, his concubine, whose name was Reumah. Reumah. Also bore Tubal, Gehem, Tahish, and Mahakah. Sarah lived 100. Wait, we're past. Yeah. That's it.
Oh, I'm in the New King James Version. That's why it's it. Okay, I didn't see the header come up.
Did we go way past it?
Not way past, just
that's-
a little ways past.
Okay.
Sarah's death is the next parsha.
Right.
Rabbi.
Thank you very much. Did a good job.
Thank you.
Yes.
I noticed something on the sacrifice, on that particular sacrifice. God provided for Himself the sacrifice,
Right.
and He does it again with the Messiah.
Right.
Yeah, because that whole scene with him bringing 2 of his servants with him was like when Yeshua is crucified, there's 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole picture of Yeshua.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, well, that's the Torah Parsha for this week. Thank all of you who joined us for time and sitting with us in this Parsha. And I hope you found it to be very interesting. And we'll have another Parsha next week talking about Sarah's death. So I hope you'll join us. And also remember that Shabbat morning, Saturday morning, we have a class at 10 o'clock that I teach on Bible issues. And then at 11 or so, we go into the morning service, and we'll discuss this a little bit more, maybe some alternate details. We'll see what God does, what He brings up.
Especially how when it lists the lineage of Abraham's brother, that's going to lead to the wife of Yaakov that he has to work for.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the
And I think,
significance of that lineage being listed there. Yes. Right.
I don't remember for sure, but I think part of the story of Judah comes up in this next parsha as well, but I'm not sure. I can't remember. I'll go review it, and then I'll know better what to say about it.
But there's also, again, as you have said multiple times in this week's Torah Parsha, the concept of lifting up the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
That unfortunately is not translated beyond man's basic understanding in the natural.
That's because there are secrets in the kingdom of God that are not openly exposed.
Right.
Otherwise, wicked people could try to implement some of these things for themselves if they knew the secrets.
Oh, and some have tried, sadly.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for joining us, and I hope to see you again next Tuesday night for another Torah class on Torah's commandments, instructions, and the customs of our Jewish people.
Amen.
God bless you, and shalom.
Thank you for joining us for another delightful evening of our Torah and Customs class. It's just what the Rabbi has said. We have a weekly Shabbat Services, which occurs Saturday morning at beginning at 10 a.m. Bible's Issues class, followed by our main service at 11 a.m. with worship, liturgy, and another teaching. And remember, if you have any of those good questions, send them over to asktherabbi@tzine.org or contact us at 512-452-8700. And please share, give us a like, and also seek further information about our congregation on our website and contributions. We'll see you again. Shalom, shalom.